Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com and incidentally, the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. If you are listening live, thank you very much. We would like more people to be listening live and, well, just as many people, I suppose, to be picking up the archives after the show. So when we ask for callers, we don't just have dead air. And my very special guest, coming from a world of peak oil and a whole bunch of people that are going crackers. These peak crackers, sorry. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Vinny.
Now, can I ask you, if you would, very, I don't know, nicely and kindly and so on and so forthly, introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are and what Peak Crackers is really all about.
Sure. And to put it in a nutshell for you, I'm just a regular guy that decided that put out some YouTube videos and try to break it down as layman terms as I possibly could. You know, there was just every time that I'd watch a video or read something, it would always leave or lack out a little bit of information. So I just started kind of stringing it along and in my own little creative, twisted way, put out a video. And one thing kind of led out to another. And to be honest with you, the Zen Gardener, which I know that comes on your show quite a bit, great man. He kind of provoked this in me, and I owe a lot to him. He was pushing my creative buttons, as he says. And this is what we got.
Well, it could be worse. You've become quite a prolific little YouTuber there. Thousands of hits on all over your videos and relative, you know, it's kind of like rising and being successful at this kind of thing, which is good because what's the alternative? Watching mainstream media?
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing, Vinny. Like, I don't do this for anything other than the hope that a little bit of that message resonates with a few folks, and if it brings some interest to the table on some of the topics that have been hidden from us, as we all know, great. You know, I've done my job. There's a little bit of light shining on some darkness, and people can become educated from that point on. Hopefully it keeps their interest enough that they say, you know what, that is something I should look into versus just sitting around watching Kim K's massive behind wiggle on mainstream media. So,
although that is rather hypnotic.
I don't know if I'd agree with you, but I guess if you say so.
You know what Kim Kardashian's ass reminds me of? It reminds me of that umbrella that the Penguin had in Batman Returns, you know? You just kind of like twirls it around and sort of hypnotizes you. And it's...
It's a great call. Yeah, that's pretty spot on.
Everything except the exploding tip. Well, I suppose that one belongs to her husband.
Oh, that's grand.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's where kind of it was all pushed, and that's what I do. I mean, it's funny, it just kind of took off from there, and, you know, like anything, you're going to get some interesting characters that come along, and right now I'm going through an episode where, I don't know if YouTube's got some sort of a bot, or it comes in and it marks all the comments off, so maybe I'm touching a nerve in the right place on some of the information I'm getting out there, and if it is, good for me.
Yeah, it becomes difficult when you've got things that you can't explain at the moment. Like, I get all these really good comments on YouTube, but for some reason they're marked as spam. Somebody marked them as spam. Who was that person?
Yes, sir. You're getting that too, I see then, Vinny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the same thing. I will put up a video, and within seconds, the video is automatically thumbed down by 40 views, and it hasn't even made the time length of the video. So, you know, a bot of some sort that they've placed into this now to discourage people like you and I from doing these type of things. And, you know, at first I was kind of thrown off by it, but whatever. Good. I'm glad if like I said, if it's touching the right nerve, so be it.
Well, I think Lancaster bomber pilots in World War II, taken off from England, going over to bomb Germany, had a saying, if you're copping the flak, you're over the target.
Man, I keep hearing everyone keeps saying that same phrase to me, you're over the target. So I'm starting to wear it with pride, to be honest with you. This all started from a native Indian fellow that I speak with, and he said, you're over the target. And I'm like, what do you mean by this? You keep saying over the target. And then Zen Gardener actually just said this to me not too long ago. So, and now yourself. Pretty magical. I'm over the target.
Yeah. I mean, well, look at it this way. If they weren't afraid of you, they wouldn't be attacking you.
Right on. And I hear you.
This is the best part. This is the best part about it, because it's sort of like if you sit back and do nothing, Pete, then they win. But if you get up and you do something, anything, you automatically win by default. And if they start attacking you because you're resisting in some way, shape, or form, then you know that you're actually being victorious.
Mm-hmm.
This is the world we find ourselves in. If you're doing something right, generally something wrong will happen to you. If not the other way around. Something wrong happens to you, then you start to become a campaigner for doing what's right. And was it just Zen Gardner who encouraged you and pulled your creative strings, or had this been building in your mind for a while?
Yeah, so, basically 15 years ago, I kind of just found myself not being happy with the things that I see around me in the world, and obviously realizing that there's a big chunk of illusion here that we're all just kind of drifting along in. And as that kind of grew over time, I'd been reading, and I was reading and mail ordering books, and then finally the internet started to pipe in a ton of information. Come, let's say, late 2005 onwards, you start to see a lot of inflow, which just fueled it even more. And then, I really didn't play with it much. And Zen Gardner's site was a site that I often went to. I was very interested in a lot of the stuff that he had posted. And he kind of reached out and said, why don't you try a few things? So I did, and I really didn't expect to see much out of it. And then it just kind of blossomed to where it's at. And really, I don't think, I'm very humble about what I do. I just do it because I think it's a message that needs to be resonated out there, and nothing more. I really don't feel anything different about it. It just is what it is. The message is what it is, and you can either dive into it and embrace it and look into it more and make your own decision as a human being. And if not, that's okay too. So at this point, I just would rather see as much as we possibly can change. Is it possible? I still have enough hope in humanity that there's good people out there. And that's what's, going to count. Sooner or later, it's going to count.
In terms of good people out there, I mean, who are your inspirations? I mean, you mentioned Zen Gardner. What are your other sources? Actually, let's go off that topic for a second here.
Sure.
You're interested in particular topics, specifically the Archon agenda, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said there.
You're interested in the Archon agenda? Like the Gnostics talked about the Archons, the mind parasite, these hierarchical psychopathic scumbaggery.
Well, I mean, I'm interested in it. It's not usually something I speak a lot about myself. I usually go on more about the illusionary, economical situation that enslaves everybody through taxation.
Well, could you give us a wee bit of a backgrounder on that from your perspective?
Sure. What I see and what I've seen is we have this system that's been put in place, and no matter how you look at it, taxation is a gun to all humans' heads. The first argument that usually comes out of most people's mouths is, I like my roads, which would just tell you on how illusionary it is right to begin with. But beyond the scope of just roads, we don't see the taxation working in any way for us. It's just more enslavement to keep you pushed down, along with the monetary policies that are put in place regardless, are never put there to keep you better than. It's always to keep you less than. That's the most easiest way I can explain to people. And we all bite into this hook, line, and sinker. And then the cycle basically starts to wash, rinse, and repeat throughout time. And it's very simple when you see it. Like you're looking now with BRIC, for example, becoming the emerging markets, which is Brazil, India, China, and Russia. All the money and gold is being hoarded into those Asiatic countries, while the depletion is happening in North America of the petrodollar. And as this roll starts to take place, it is the same cyclical factor that took place prior to World War II, with the Americas being the emerging market. So when does the game stop? When do enough humans wake up from enough pain that's basically self-induced, so to say, and they go, we've had enough. Hopefully, there's a chunk that will eventually wake up and enlighten themselves enough to not participate in this, ongoing bullcrap. Makes sense?
Personally, I'm not 100% sure whether or not the so-called masses is something we should actually really be trying to allegedly wake up, because they don't matter. I mean, for the large part, this might be offensive to some people, but you look back through history. Has it been the masses who led revolutions and or even participated in them? Statistically, it's only been a couple of % of any population in any country that's ever had any kind of successful revolution. And I think, globally speaking, it's in fact the small number of individuals, people like you and myself, Peak, who will in fact make the difference. And maybe we're distracting ourselves by thinking that all those people that have never mattered throughout history suddenly matter for some reason.
It's very possible, sir. And you know what? You could be spot on with fooling myself in that concept, because I'm not going to kid anybody. I'm not going to try and tell you that I can wake people up, because I know I can't. That's not what I've ever set out to do. In fact, you're not going to wake up until either one or two things happen. It's so devastating that you're forced to, or something catches enough of your attention that you take an interest in it versus all the rest of the mainstream media and the propaganda and illusion that's placed around you, 100-fold. My goal is to hope that I catch that little bit of interest, and maybe it'll spark a small bit of rebellion towards this illusion and ego that's, clouded everyone's minds. That's always been kind of what sparked me. I stumbled upon a book years back, and it was basically the Orwellian books, right, that kind of sparked my interest, and it just kind of led from there. And the maybes and would-be started going off in my mind. And as I started to dig, I started to become a little bit more educated in these topics. It'll lead me to the road I'm at now. So I hope that maybe just, that small little hook that sits out there catches a piece of someone's sweater, and it's enough to start to unravel. And all of a sudden you find yourself naked with your thoughts.
Is that by chance the Sandy Hook?
I'm sorry, Vinny.
What kind of hook were you talking about? Wasn't Sandy Hook by chance?
That's the mental hook, not the Sandy Hook.
If you say so.
Sandy Hook is...
I saw this very, very interesting film. In fact, I didn't watch the film. I thought it would probably be too lame, but I watched it and saw this title come up. Right, when you're looking through for movies to watch late into the night off of the internet or whatever, and this title comes up: The Sandy Hook Lingerie Massacre. The movie was made in 2002, and I was like, whoa, buddy, how is that possible? I mean, had you ever heard of Sandy Hook before? I don't know. And what occurred to me is that the world is really, really weird, right? It's just too freaking weird. And what I really get annoyed with is people who are really sure that they know what they know. People who are really sure that they're doing what they're doing for a specific reason or whatever. I'm not really sure of anything anymore, because the world's too crazy for me to try and make sense of, to a large degree. Do you feel similar sometimes?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the whole thing. I just try to rattle off my thoughts on these videos, and I can only grab at what I see, and then from there you have to investigate it and make your own conclusion. You're 100% right. Who knows what's really been placed in front of us? What I do know is I wake up and somehow or another I got to feed myself and take care of people around me, and I try to do my best at that every day. Just try to give a little bit more versus taking all the time. And I think that is probably the biggest change that I can make, is just to come at it with that approach versus having that conditional greed on me that's been placed on most of society. And once you break out of that mindset, I find for myself, it's a big weight off your shoulders. You don't have that same press down that you've always got to be fighting in this fear-driven realm.
Yeah.
The things to give.
Yeah, man. We're all living in this constant societal pressure of fear and scarcity, fear of not having enough. I think
Exactly.
like when I quit my job, bro, I had like heaps of money, okay, and then I decided that I would become an activist. And for the next, I don't know, what's it been now? Been like 6, 7 years or something. Living by the skin of my teeth, but every single time that I need something, every single time I need shoes, pants, clothes, food, rent, internet, interest paid on the credit card, whatever it is, it turns up. And it's because I'm no longer afraid of scarcity that it suddenly no longer exists. We'll be right back after the break at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. Pete Crackers is my guest, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you go anywhere.
No matter where you live, globalism affects you. Did you know that the Vinny Eastwood Show has more subscribers than New Zealand Herald TV and is New Zealand's most popular YouTube news channel, where warm-hearted humour and a list of awesome guests talk about crucial issues which the mainstream media ignore. A show where you, the listener, can phone up with questions, comments and suggestions of guests. Vinny is building a hub to connect truthers with raw information they need to become active. He can help you gain further skills such as website building, producing audio and video, and creating revenue streams in your own multimedia environment. Because Vinny supports such a wide range of people in the truth movement, he is not government or corporate backed and relies entirely on your donations. Give now, give generously, or subscribe for $10 a month for access to ad-free video archives. Just visit the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and click donate.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, the show where the music never stops and the guests keep on coming. Kind of like the Rick D's Hottest 100 of truth and scumbaggery exposing. My very special guest is Peak Crackers. You've heard of Peak Oil and you've heard about how it's driving everybody crackers. Well, now we're talking to Peak Crackers. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Can I ask, what did you used to do for a living?
What do I still do for a living, actually?
Really?
Yeah, I have not. I still, let's call it fornicate with the Matrix. How's that? I have a large retail shop that I've had for about 26 years. Mm-hmm. And I've been in the health industry. I retail fitness equipment. And it's just been a kind of a thing that I started off with more or less just to kind of work for myself. And that's what I've done. Never kind of went into it for the paper notes, just kind of went into it so I'd be left alone, if that makes sense. And I kind of blossom, and, I make enough paper off it to be happy. And I get the chance to give some away.
Yeah. Well, I think a very wise person once said that money can't buy happiness, but a lack of money certainly buys misery and stress.
Yeah, well said.
Mm-hmm. Because misery and stress is one of those few things in life that there is abundant and free and devoid of scarcity.
Well, and that's the whole where the name Peak Crackers actually came from, was the whole spin on peak oil, peak food, peak, and that's what it was. It was just peak everything, right? All this peak fear. And crackers, you're absolutely right, come from peak crazies and peak slave drivers. So that's kind of the spoof on the name.
Yeah, well, and now we've got the government who want to peek into your lives, so it's peak surveillance as well.
Well said. Absolutely. Peekaboo.
Yeah. That we are entering now into the age of peek-aboo. Which means there will be large numbers of Aladdin's monkey walking the earth.
Yep. Vinny, I'm so amazed at all the people out there now that I see more and more people, though, speaking out. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's because I'm so caught up in the world of alternative media, so to say, that I see it out there. And, I see sites out there that I bump into all the time that are really outspoken about the Matrix. And I'm shocked by how far they're willing to push their necks out of line, with no fear. And that's what's needed, is that speaking out, that constant envelope pushing of, look, I have vocal cords, I'm going to use them. I'm not doing it to harm anybody, but this has got to stop. And that's what is needed out there right now, until they take the net away, obviously. But for while it's on, there's some really good sites out there that I see really pushing the envelopes.
Could you list a few of those? Because I'm all in favour of cross promotion and bringing other people into the fold.
Yeah, I found one a little while back called Mammy's Shit. I'm sorry that I have to say that, but that's what the site is actually called.
Well, unfortunately, okay, I apologise to the affiliates for the FCC regulation lapse there. But yes, it was a quote, so I think we can get away with that under artistic license. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the name of the site. I mean, I can't. That's what it's called. And I find that they really push the envelope, and they'll post a lot of other media out there, and that's what it's about. They'll dig it up. They'll take the time. It's definitely not along the lines like your site, or sometimes even with the Gardener, where they'll write their own information. But these guys will go out there and dig up stuff that isn't posted anywhere else. And the more that it's not posted somewhere, the more that they try and dig it up and put it out. And that's kind of what I like to see. I like to see people going after those meat and potato stories that you just don't get everywhere else. And they're not afraid to talk out about it. They're not afraid to voice their humanly opinion if they see something wrong. And then you have a choice as a human. You can either learn about it, accept it, or walk away from it. But at least we have that choice versus what we get now, which is no choice, just a choice to do what they tell us to do. And I can't stand that.
Yeah, I think that's actually something I learned as a boy, is the thing that really ticks me off most about anything is simply not having a choice in the matter. You have to do this or you have to do that. Well, what about an option that I've come up with by myself? No. You have to do this or you have to do that. And so the only two choices I've got are bad choices that some other motherfracker came up for me. Yes, that's right. Okay, well, that sucks.
Yeah. Yep. And it's wrong. Like when I step back and I am boxed into a corner, but it's an illusionary box, but either way, you're still boxed because that's what you have in your own mindset. The minute you get just a small taste of fresh air from something else, then it's on. And that's what you're starting to see now, I find, with a lot more people out there. They're willing to go the distance. They're willing to speak out against, anything that they don't see fit in the world that's unjust, that's causing people harm, it's causing people pain or suffering, to starve. And, I look at the country I'm in, Canada. Food is abundant. It's crazy how much food is here. And yet half the world starves. I mean, just the province I live in could pretty much take care of that very easily. But
Yeah.
It's done purposely. And, that's the part that makes me ill to my stomach and drives me to keep speaking out.
Yeah. Well, there's the element that I think is most important for people to comprehend is that the people who are in charge are not like you. They're not like me. They don't think like a normal, moral person was. I mean, your neighbor comes over to your house and says to you, "Bro, could I borrow a cup of sugar? I'm out of sugar. I just need just a cup so I can make some cookies for my kids." You give them a cup of sugar, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
What do the elite do? The people like Mr. Burns and release the hounds.
They're going to charge you on it 15 times over.
Yeah. Well, you say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get your signature on this piece of paper, and only then will I create the sugar, and you're going to have to pay me back sugar way more than I gave you, incrementally, over time, so that your sugar debt will be a millstone around your neck, and the next time you come and you want to borrow a cup of sugar, you won't actually be wanting to borrow a cup of sugar to bake cookies for your kids. You'll be wanting to borrow a cup of sugar off me so that you can pay me back some of the sugar you owe me from the first cup you borrowed.
It's never ending, Vinny.
That's the New World Order neighbor.
Yeah. You're right on that. And if they don't do it that way, they'll make sure that there's nothing around you ever, so you can ever even just try and get your own sugar. Period. Right? They'll force you into the factor of wanting the sugar, no matter what.
How did you?
And that's with starving countries, right? You can't compete with free food, and they've given enough free food for everybody to stop farming. And now all of a sudden, you've got starving people and lots of free food over this way, but it's not free anymore.
Where did Where did your moral compass come from, if I might ask?
I come from a native background, Indian. And in Canada, I just seen a lot of devastation take place with these, with people throughout this area that were kind of beat down and starved off and placed in situations they shouldn't have probably never been put in purposely, and suppressed. And then, glorified that suppression as if people were doing something right for this group, and it wasn't. It was exact opposite. So, as people ended up on reservations, which were literally chunks of land that were no good and beat up and given like some token, it just made me ill to watch. I didn't take that path in life. I went full head into the matrix, and I didn't mind being in there. I learned fighting in the trenches that way and understood the greed factor that takes place on a constant basis around me. And it was literally a mindset and conditioning that most people just love. They love the illusionary pleasure that comes with it. And they just have a hard time giving it up. So my moral compass really does come from just that. It's just watching people constantly, be taken advantage of and put into a box of pain, not knowing that they're just stepping into it themselves.
Also, on top of this, just being a person who's in business for yourself, did you by chance be like a lot of other people who are really unhappy with the fact that they were, well, more or less had to follow orders from an employer?
Are you asking me, are people unhappy that work here at my shop? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question all the way.
The opposite way around. I mean, when you became self-employed, what was the differences that you noticed really in your own personal life versus when you were an employed person who had to follow orders?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I didn't have a long time that I was employed, and fortunately enough for me, the one place that I was employed, the person that was, I guess you consider my boss, and I hate even using that term, but they were really good to me. They actually took me under their wing and helped me move along. But to bring that forward, Vinny, in my own business, no, I don't tell anybody. When they come here, I don't tell them they work for me. They work with me. I just have, I explain that they have to have respect that I carry the bulk of the weight, the lion's share of it all the time on my shoulders. And with that being said, they're just as human as I am, and I try to make it as fair and as comfortable so everybody does walk in, and it's a good place to work, that we just got to do it to make some paper to get on with it. It's a means to, it's a medium of exchange. And most people that work here have been here for, 20 years. They've been here a long time. So, and it's just a mom and pa shop. It's nothing that fancy, but we all, grind it out and we get along good. And it takes that stress off, of that power-hungry, thriving kind of fear-induced environment. That's horrible to live in. You probably know yourself when you said, screw it, I'm going to go out and do my own thing. Once that's off your shoulders, life just becomes a lot nicer all the way around. So the bulk of the people that are here, they're happy. They're good people.
You never had anybody come in and take advantage of your trust and respect for them?
Absolutely, I've had. Sure, yeah, and it's going to happen. There's going to be that odd character, and thank God that I've only had experience maybe that once in the 26 years I've been doing this.
Well, that's nice. I guess you attract to yourself what you already are.
I think there's a lot to be said. Exactly what you just said. I believe that does come with those people. Maybe when people are treated with respect, sometimes they just don't want to take advantage of you either. And I really believe that. I think if you are fair, understanding, and don't, it's obviously very clear that kindness isn't weakness, but they do find a new respect for a human being if you're not just trying to take off somebody. In fact, you're looking out to hope that you can help out in a different way.
Speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening live, our board op, Adam, who has been holding the network together basically by himself for the last month and a half, 2 months, been producing everybody's shows. and doing a damn fine job of it, is completely out of food. He doesn't have any food. That's how terrible the situation is at American Freedom Radio. So, I want to ask if anybody would be kind enough to donate to Adam so we can, go down the road, get a cheeseburger or something. Go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, click donate, and put a little note on the donation saying this is for Adam, the board op, so the boy can eat. Because, bro, not being able to even have anything to eat whilst exposing scumbaggery and talking about a world full of starving children. I am one of the starving children, he says. It's actually quite nasty because what I find interesting is that there's two ways of contributing to the truth movement. One is sort of like a self-sustainable way, whereas you take care of yourself and then whatever you've got left, you take care a little bit with others, sort of thing. And what my methodology is, and a lot of other people, is that you know that you really don't have anything, but you know that you can still give a lot to other people instead, like doing video, doing radio, this kind of thing. It actually serves people. I mean, it actually feels better to know that there's actually somebody there listening and recording and putting these things out on air and online, and you being able to tell your personal stories and things like that. And that's what I give to people, even though I don't actually really have any resources on my own other than that. So please go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and donate to Adam so the boy can go and get himself some food, yo. Back in a minute. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show. My very special guest is Peak Crackers. And, we are really living in a world of being peak crackers. And something you said to me before, bro, was that you said that you're an ordinary person. And I can't stress to you just how many exceptional people tell me that. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I just see myself that way. I just believe that I'm a human being, and I just try to be a human being in the best way possibly that I can.
Well, see, just in that very simple prognosis there means that you're actually an exception, because most people aren't like that anymore. The New World Order's educated and brainwashed people to the point where what you just said and what you just thought about doing and who you are is actually the crazy part of society that should be ridiculed, ignored, tortured, prodded, poked, waterboarded, locked away in Guantanamo Bay.
Mm-hmm.
That's how frickin' peak crackers this world is right now, bro.
I agree. And it's, some people see that in a sense of fear. I don't see it as fear. It saddens my heart to know that there's other humans out there being held against their will and tortured and fed with giant tubes down their noses or their stomachs sliced open so they can put the feeding tube into it. And, at this point in the game, and this is the stuff that I try and bring to the table, that maybe, just maybe, some other human that feels the way I do will have enough, and as unfortunate as this, sadness, that'll catch their attention versus Kim K's giant behind, and they'll realize there's an important issue to be at hand at all times, from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, that this is what we have to deal with, and if you don't deal with it, then it'll deal with you. And there's only one other way not to deal with it, and that's to walk away and move yourself completely. And unfortunately, that is very difficult for most people. As much as people will say it, and I often preach it myself, say is walk away the most that you can or the best that you can. It is difficult to do. It's probably the hardest things for most humans to do, is to leave the illusion and start walking down a different path of life. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to leave other humans to be tortured and suffered, though, in the process.
I think when we talk about this motivation to do right by humanity, it's often because something really bad has happened to us. or we've seen something really bad happen to people who are close to us. And you mentioned before a little bit about how you got into it. I was just wondering what is it that makes you really, really sad? Sad enough to actually motivate you?
It's mainly a lot of times, Vinny, is the children. It's kids, because it's innocent life. It's innocent life that's just trying to be happy, and to take it away and to harm it on a regular basis will keep me awake at night, because it is defenseless. It doesn't really have a way to defend against it other than run. And when that has been taken away, then it's cornered. And, I don't know how many times that, I've read an article on Palestine, or I've seen other kids around the world, even in Africa, that are just, put through this endless torture of grief right from the minute that they're born onwards. It really can weigh on you sometimes. Now, a lot of people say, well, don't let it get to you, but it's what fuels me. I don't want to see it in the world. So what am I going to do? Just talk about it? The only thing I can do is try and participate now and get the word out there. Do what I can to help. If I have to donate in certain places, I'll donate. If I can do whatever I possibly can do, I want to do it. I just don't want to sit and just think about it anymore. And I think that's, the problem. People become very complacent in their own thoughts, and it just becomes overwhelming, and they don't want to touch it. Well, you eventually got to make some sort of movement towards it, and, start to rectify, if you can, if all possible, to get these things dealt with.
Just spreading information, do you feel that's enough, or are you feeling you're obligated to do more, like you might grow and expand the things that you're doing nowadays?
I don't know, Vin. Myself, I don't know if where it's going, and honestly, I just take it day by day. At this point, I just want to try and do the best I can as a human right now while I'm breathing. I don't feel that it's necessary to concentrate all the time on me when there's a lot of people around me suffering. And I come from a pretty hard-hit area of Canada. I'm not too far away from Detroit, which is devastated, as you know. And I did live in Detroit for quite some time. And that was an eye-opener, what was taking place in Detroit and what's taking place now. And to see a city just left the way that it is in ruins, and you can dress it up and put lipstick on the pig all you want, it's still a pig. And ultimately, unfortunately, this is what is coming. It's unwinding and it's unraveling, and as it does, there's a lot of people that get hurt in the process. So maybe you can help a person or two while you can, for them not being hurt. Maybe they can bypass that hurt in a different way.
Now, speaking of the process, the thought process, and you've got a term called a thought fungus. What is that?
Well, it's funny. It's what you often speak about on your shows, on the mainstream media, and how all these thoughts just kind of start to grow, like a mushroom in your mind, and they start to take over. And as that process starts happening, I find in people's heads, they become very complacent in their own thoughts. In fact, their own thoughts it basically starts to self-consume them in their own thinking. They no longer become physically motivated to do anything. They just are caught up in thought. And the consumption in it just starts to basically manifest over and over. And I see this a lot when people start to wake up. They get so caught up into it that all of a sudden it's so overwhelming, it almost paralyzes them. And now they don't know what to do. They're just kind of stuck in this process of thinking all the time. And at first you don't recognize it, but I have a friend of mine that woke up around the same time I did, if you want to call it that, waking up. And he's in that process where he's just stuck in thought. It just, it's kind of like he just overthinks and gets so caught up in his own mind. It's almost reclusive in a way, where they're just kind of out in the woods and just thinking and not doing anything else. There's no other part to their life other than their own thoughts, and it's its own way. It's a self-consuming process. So when I did that video, it was trying to alert people. But I have seen this done, and I've actually gone through it at one point where I started, overthinking everything. Everything that I did, I overthought it, and it was consuming me. The same way that I would consume other things. It was kind of a reversal.
This process of your thoughts consuming you, I've kind of thought about this. It happens to a lot of people who wake up and instead of taking action, they decide, oh, I need more information, when they've already got enough information to start taking action on something. And as a result, they feel powerless and helpless because they're not actually doing anything. They're not actually becoming self-reliant. That's really dangerous. Because when you're powerless and helpless in your own mind, you start to hold a pin on your fellow man. You start to think that everybody else is useless and powerless and helpless, just like you, when they're not. And it's actually you that has the problem. And everybody else, you know, you can't solve everybody else's problems. Anybody who tries to solve everybody else's problems and just ignores their own ain't going to solve anything. You know? How are you going to pull a splinter out of somebody's eyes if you've got a tree branch in your own, bro? I mean, seriously. These people, it's just, like, say, for example, the Cancer Society. You ever had these people out there peak with, what's it called, these donation buckets? You know, donate to cancer research. How long have you been out here asking people to donate for cancer research? Oh, well, I've been doing it, you know, on and off voluntarily for 6 years. Okay. And in that 6 years, how much money do you reckon the entire organization has accumulated? Oh, I don't know, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. And how many cures or near cures have you come up with? Oh, nothing at all. And how many massive advertising campaigns and people like you that are actually paid to stand out here have been supported this entire time? Oh, probably about 100% of the profits. Okay. You're a slave. And you think that you're helping, but all you're doing is messing yourself round. And messing around everybody else that you're taking money off. And not actually producing anything as a result. Okay? You are an unwitting leech on society. There is a cure to cancer. It's called hemp oil. You know how much it costs to make? Virtually nothing. And that's the reason why the Cancer Society still exists. Is because the thing that could cure you, that costs virtually nothing, that you can't get millions upon millions of donations every single year for, ain't something that is useful to you. Something that's useful for humanity, but not to your pocketbook. Is this the kind of mental fungus that we're talking about here, Pete?
100%. Yep, you just hit it right on the nose.
You know, people working real hard to accomplish nothing.
Video.
Sorry, what?
I said that was exactly what I was trying to get across in that video. The problem is when I bring it out in those terms, the way you've just explained it, most people kind of give me the, yeah, I already heard that, you know, and I'll do what I want with my money. It's my money. So I try to maybe just go at it in a different approach with the video. I tried to throw a little bit of a spin on it, a little bit deeper, maybe make them look at it in a different angle if I possibly could. But you're spot on with your analogy. That's exactly what I was getting at.
Now, on top of that, what occurs to me is that people are living their lives and have been living most of their life for a very useless purpose. Being a cog in the machine, okay? You've actually got a heck of a lot more power than that. When was the last time you had a real conversation with somebody, okay? You know, about something important, something personal. When was the last time you could really say, absolutely, that you had an original thought? And when was the last time you went and criticized somebody else because they weren't communicating their thoughts appropriately to you for you to consume? We'll be right back after the break at thevinnieeastwoodshow.com.
If you take an active interest in maintaining the optimum health and well-being of yourself and your family, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is the magazine you've been waiting for. Having taken Australia and New Zealand by storm, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is now available in the UK and Europe. Visit www.nznaturalmed.co.uk or call 01626 337 531 to order your copy now.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of the fastest 2 hours in talk radio. It's the Vinny Eastwood Show, the lighter side of genocide, because in a world so full of chaos and madness and scumbaggery, if you lose your sense of humour, you'll go frickin' nuts. And my very special guest, celebrating the peak of human insanity, it's Pete Crackers. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. I like the diet genocide version. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Show.
Well, you know, surprisingly enough, diet genocide is even more cancer-causing than regular genocide. Allegedly.
On the money, Vinny, before break, when you said, when have you ever had, or when have you last had a conversation, you know, with your friends that really meant something? And I got to tell you, with today's technology, with Skype, I get to have some of the best conversations with people I don't even know. And they're just meaningful conversations. I have a bunch of fellows that I often discuss things back and forth and just, you know, bounce things out there, test for echo on our own, you know, babble, so to say. And they're truthful and they're honest. And the conversations are deep and they're meaningful. And they're all over the world. You know, I talk with a couple fellows from Ireland, one from the UK, one from the United States. And they're just heartfelt men that really just care like I do. And the conversations are on great topics, and they're usually about, you know, love and humanity and what the evils are doing amongst these people in the world, and you know how they can make a difference. And they're really good and refreshing conversations versus just your local sports team winning or how cold is your beer at that particular moment with a hot slice of pizza. And hey, that's not a bad thing from time to time, but it becomes everything in most people's worlds, unfortunately, versus the problems that do exist, and we choose to ignore them.
Yeah, it's like you feel empty. Like there's a meaningful purpose to your life, but you don't know what it is, and it hurts you that you don't know what it is. So you try to ply yourself with whatever is available and distract yourself from realizing the simple, obvious truth that you're a slave and you're not fighting your own enslavement, you're just reinforcing it day by day. And that if that realization hits you, then you got two choices. You can change it, or you can attempt to distract yourself even more and start to criticize those people who are changing it. You ever notice that?
All the time. All the time. It is 100% the truth, and you have that choice at any given second of your life to make that difference and to start seeing it in a different way. And that way is being truthful to understand that you're enslaved. And then what are you going to do about that enslavement from that point on? Are you just going to keep going with the flow? Or are you going to maybe swim against the current for a while and see how that feels? And you will get tired for a little while. Then you'll eventually flow with the current, and you'll anchor onto a different spot on that stream. And if that spot doesn't feel comfortable, then hey, go back in there and keep swimming a little bit. But don't just float along, because at the end of it is a waterfall. And it's usually not going to be very good. And when that comes crashing down and you feel that pressure on you, that is what they've set out to do. And I see it all the time to this day. People still can't figure out what's causing so much pain in their life. How did it all go wrong is the most common phrase, right? I had a great job. I had a big house. I had a great vehicle. We went on vacation, Disney World, yeah. And then the end of all of it, their fetal position in a corner. Why? I thought it was all great. What happened here?
Well, all those things that you once held dear, that you thought were really valuable and enjoyable, were actually nothing. Really. Temporary glitches and programs in the matrix, as it were, that don't actually mean anything. I mean, I've got these flashy belt buckles still from when I was a salesman, you know, like a big metal $100 bill belt buckle, a giant dollar sign encrusted with cubic zirconia belt buckle, you know, this kind of real flashy stuff. And I was looking at them about a month ago, and I was just like, wow, these are really cool, but they're not me. They're not me anymore. You know, I was trying to think about the sort of arrogant, I'm number one top salesperson that I was, making all the money, doing everything better than everybody else, and feeling real proud of myself as a result. And I suppose nothing's changed, except now I'm not making a whole lot of money.
Nope. And I hear. But doesn't it feel good, Vinny, that you're in the muck? Doesn't it feel good that you're in that muck, and you're in there and you're feeling it? You know the muck is real. You know what you're into right now is dirt and all. It's real.
Yeah.
And, you know, the attractions and attachments that you just mentioned, all that thin air that we grasp onto and almost blowing coal and holding onto it so tightly all the time, is now out of your illusionary hands that were holding it to begin with. Now you're in it. You're in the realism of it. This is the beauty. This is the good stuff. That's why even when I get my YT channel attacked by these bots, you know, I laugh, but it is the game of now pushing the nerves and making a difference versus just floating along on this bullcrap feather that really wasn't there to begin with, right? So I can have some title that wasn't me to begin with either. And once that's washed away and people get grounded in a sense, and they're spiritually strong and mentally hard as iron, got a good thing going on. It's the people out there still boasting about their pinstripe couches and, you know, manicured grass that they often spend years manicuring to play God, the ones I worry about. I say, look at Detroit, and then maybe you'll figure it out.
What's people's problem, in your opinion? I mean, what is it that separates men like us, who take action, behave honourably, from the rest of the people who choose to distract themselves with things that have little or no value? What is the difference?
Ego. I really sum it up a lot of times, just plain out ego. People see themselves in the second dimension versus just using the second dimension. And when you can start just using the second dimension, basically what I mean by that is, hey, I'm going to pick up that bottle and I can see myself doing it, and I know how the functions are going to react before I start to do them because my mind's eye allows me to do that, versus seeing myself as an illusionary character that's now created through the matrix and all the conditioning and programming. That's where we go wrong. We start seeing ourselves as something that we're not. So if I can just pick the bottle up and visually see myself picking up, it's just a bottle. I know I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to take a drink of this water. But if I see myself in my studded, encrusted zirconia belt buckle, right, as Pimp Vinny, the top salesman, now it's a whole different ball game. It's not just you picking up the bottle. It's Pimp Vinny picking up the bottle. And I believe that is the setback of most people that I speak with. They can't get past that second visual of themselves, just being themselves. They always still have to have the imagery that's created falsely in their mind's eye, and it just doesn't exist.
You know, to be honest, when you said that, the image in my mind's eye of Pimp Vinny seemed pretty awesome.
You know what I mean, Vinny? Get yourself a tooth player, little sideways hat, one pant leg pulled up, and you're on your way.
Well, see, I was thinking more like a full-on fluffy tiger skin jacket kind of thing, with like a chinchilla fur collar, with a cane, and a gargantuan hat, with like what are those gargantuan birds called that have like the huge kind of sort of fluffy tails that they have at the a peacock, yeah. Gargantuan peacock feathered hat. Like some kind of Native American headdress of pimpology.
There you go. You know, and that's the problem, right, Ben, is we see this go on all the time. And it goes on. I find this even goes on in truth circles. You know, I find truthers that are out there and they're pounding their chest on how big and bad they are in the truth movement versus just doing what they got to do to make sure that we can get truth out. You know, it's not about scorekeeping on who's the biggest and the baddest truther. Look, let's just get the information out there to start with and hope that we get enough people interested to maybe put pressure on the evil ones, if you want to call them that, to understand that, hey, there's a group here and they're ready to rock and roll on blowing what we've been hiding for a long time out of proportion. So here they are. Now what's happening, I find in the truth movement, you got people out there literally trying to just steal limelight versus doing what they need to do to get the truth out.
Yeah, well, my situation's rather ironic in that sense, is that I just try to do what I can to get the truth out, and as a result I wind up stealing the limelight by default.
Hey, not a bad thing though, man. If people are listening to you and they're doing, they're doing it and they're in there and they're caring, and that's not a bad thing. Like, I think it's a bad thing when you start doing it in a different format and you're misleading people or bringing them down the wrong direction to literally make a profit off of it, and it just furthers the same greed that we're all just trying to fight about to begin with, right? Then you're just being hypocritical and completely dishonest to yourself and everyone else around you.
Yeah, and you really do have to keep constantly questioning yourself, like, am I doing the right thing still? Am I being completely honest with myself at this particular moment? And the more you question yourself on those regards, and what was that piece of advice that I got? Oh yeah. When I was young and I was drinking, I think it might have been like 15, 16 or whatever. I was around at a friend's place having some drinks, and his father was dying of emphysema at the time. He says, as a man, you've got to get up every morning and you've got to look at yourself in the mirror while you shave. If you can still tolerate that image you see reflected back at you, and it doesn't disgust you, then you're doing all right. And I think that's an analogy for seeing yourself as you really are and truly acknowledging what your reflection is. If you're not able to see yourself as you really are, then you're lost. And you shouldn't be able to live with yourself. And that's, I think, the bulk of people's problems is that they don't want to look in the mirror. They don't want to be told that they're wrong. They don't want people to come in to say to them, look, bro, you're a slave. Okay, I know you think you've got all this stuff. I know you think you got your family, and I know you think you got your house, and I know you think you got your car, and I know you think you got your freedom, and I know you think you've got your privacy. None of it really exists. And at a moment's notice, it can be taken away from you. And there will be nothing you can do about it. And sure enough, all of these things are being taken away from everybody. And just because you're not one of the people that has had it all taken away from you yet, doesn't mean you're immune. It means your time is coming. Here's the question. Do you want to find out what it's like to lose everything you hold dear? Before or after you absolutely have to? Do you want to be prepared for the day that it really starts to come on strong? Or do you want it to live your life in an illusion until the day that the illusion disappears? Like being on holiday when you know you've got work to do. And only when you come back to work do you realize that your entire business is in the toilet because you tried to operate under the illusion that you wanted a holiday when you needed to be getting your work done.
Well said.
People will be really, really conscious of this. If you're not doing something important for humanity in general, on a daily basis, to counteract the scumbaggery that is being perpetrated upon the population of this entire freaking planet simultaneously, every single day and every single minute and every single second. How can you live with yourself? And even if you could live with yourself based upon that knowledge, how long could you go on ignoring it without feeling something really, really nasty eating away at your insides like a boar worm chewing through your intestines? This is the kind of pain and fear that I feel on a daily basis. You know, like even when I go to sleep, I'll wake up 8 hours later and I'll feel guilty that I spent 8 hours sleeping instead of exposing scumbaggery. Look, you know, that's maybe a bit too much pressure to put on myself because I need my sleep. But scumbaggery needs to be exposed more because it doesn't sleep. Have you noticed that?
It's not going to sleep. It's never slept. And it is on all the time, 24/7, 365 days of the year. It's on. The National Defense Act that was signed at, New Year's Eve, 12 o'clock midnight, will tell you everything. Didn't go to sleep. Wasn't no partying. Wasn't popping champagne corks in the United States. Signed in the right to throw citizens at any given time into a jail without any defense. Wasn't having a good time at Times Square. And you're 100% right, Vinny. This is the deal. Bottom line is we're on this chunk of dirt. And you can make a decision. You can sit around doing a whole lot of nothing and twiddling your thumbs and keep on dreaming. Or you can see what's really going on out there and make a choice to be active. And myself, I feel great when I'm active. I feel that's the worth of life, period, is to give and to keep giving as much as I possibly can. That takes the douchebagness right off of you. When you give, you will feel so good about doing that little small motion, whatever it may be. Maybe it's just time. Maybe it's just services. You don't have to always give money. I have a friend of mine that literally drops off tomatoes that he grows all the time to people in his neighborhood, puts them on their front steps. Fantastic thing to do. It's just a gift, giving what you can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's don't give what you can't give. But if you've got something to give, don't be afraid of losing it, okay? Because you can always get more and give more at the same time. We'll be right back after the break with Pete Crackers. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show. It's the lighter side of genocide, indeedy. Duty, and the call-in number, this is a test right now. If you'd like to call in and talk to myself or Mr. Pete Crackers, by the way, his YouTube channel is youtube.com/Mr. Pete Crackers. The number is 218-339-8525. That's 218-339-8525. Please call in and share your thoughts with us. Now, Bare Bones Productions. I was wondering, why have you characterized yourself as Pete Crackers with a skeleton smoking a cigarette?
Why did I use a skeleton? Is that was your question, Vinny?
Yeah.
I like the skeleton because there's no fluff. It's just bare bones truth. That's what I've always kind of went after. I try it in my videos. If I go on the philosophical end of it, I mean, it can be conceived all kinds of different ways. But a lot of times when I can find fact, if I can find hard fact, that's what I like to do, is strip away all the fluffing and fat and everything else that's been placed upon a fact and expose it for what it is. So that's kind of where I got the bare bones production. It was just kind of a corny thing I threw out there to lighten the mood, I guess, more than anything else. But the reality with the skeleton was the whole fact of just skin and bone truth. I didn't want it to be anything but that. Here's a bunch of facts. You can look them up for yourself and make your own decision from there. But this is what I found. So that's why I chose Mr. Skeleton Man. So it's just a skeleton. It's just bones in a suit that made him look somewhat, I guess, dressed up, and left it at that.
Yeah. It's kind of like a crackhead for truth. And it's just like what was it called? Dave Chappelle did a sketch one time when he was his limo driver accidentally he was like trying to find some weed, right? and his limo driver went in through a bad neighborhood, and he was, Dave Chappelle's like freaking out in the back of this limo, just going, "Oh my God, gangsters over there with their guns and stuff like that, and sideways cabs, crackheads scuttling into the alleys," and what occurs to me is that we've gotten ourselves into the point where we don't see ourselves as one with everybody. We see everybody as completely different to ourselves. And I think that's actually the bare bones truth of it, is that everything that we see around us, in my opinion, is a representation of me, because how I feel about it and how I think about it actually reflects more upon who I am as a person than what that person I'm judging and pointing fingers at is. What do you reckon?
It's easy to blame. I mean, it's the low-hanging fruit in my eyes when people start blaming all kinds of other people around them on a constant basis for their own demise and demoralization and problems that they stepped into. And they can't look within themselves to see that it is consistent within them, not the other fellow. Now, mind you, look, there is a system that's set up to keep you belted down, and that part we all have to somehow understand. Once that takes place, stop the blaming. Start looking at yourself to get out. Start looking at yourself on how you can make the difference so you're not impacted by any of this, and maybe even just deflect some of it in a sense of you taking the responsibility, not blaming a religious group, not blaming a cultural group, not blaming a race. It's easy to do that. It's very quick and easy to do that. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have discussions about the problems that you see. It doesn't mean you can't have a discussion about religious groups. But bottom line is you still have to make the decision within you to make that difference, to step away from it. And that is probably the most important thing that everyone tends to somehow bypass. They want to shift it off and say, you are the blame for all my problems. Yeah, fine, we got Duke. Now you accept it. Now move on. Cut as much of it you can to get out. Fight against it, but using yourself and not blaming someone else or setting someone else up, for that matter, for the fall of all the blunt of this problem. Because I think most people don't realize how large and how powerful it is that's been placed over top of humanity as we know it.
Have you seen Alien 3?
We can't all wake up and think we know everything. We just don't. So what do we know ourselves, or at least we try to get to know ourselves the best?
Did you ever see the movie Alien 3?
I have not, no.
Well, it was a great little speech in the end, towards the end. Like, they're basically unarmed, and they got to somehow kill this alien, right? And Ripley's trying to get them all organized so that they can trap it and boil it in hot lead. And it's really dangerous to do this because they've got to lure it into the mold in order to pour the hot lead on this creature, right? So they're really putting themselves in harm's way in order to defeat this creature. And the criminals say to her, "Why should we put our ass on the line for you?" And she says to them, "Your ass is already on the line. The only question is, what are you going to do about it?" And this is, I think, the situation that most truthers find themselves in. You're like, why should I put my ass on the line for the truth against the New World Order? Why should I put my ass on the line to expose and defeat Agenda 21 being implemented in my hometown? Yeah, what makes you think your ass ain't on the line already? Only question is, what are you going to do about it? You don't have a choice about whether or not your ass is on the line.
Right on with that. What are you going to do about it? And that is the question I think that every person has to ask themselves on a day-to-day basis and keep it fresh in your mind. Because I think it's easy to forget that little simple step that we have to do in our lives. What am I going to change today to make it so I'm out of that harm's way, that I'm not participating in that game? Maybe it might be something small, but it definitely is something, either way you want to look at it. One of the things that I often preach to people, and they'll say, well, what can I do? What can I do to get myself going? Start buying food off of a farmer. There's lots of them around, and if you can't, I'm sure there's lots of little side street stands that are set up that someone's growing their food. It's a great way to stop buying at these large food stores that really it's just filled with pesticides and GMOs and all the other stuff that we know that's loaded up on this food. And you're giving that medium of exchange the way it was meant to be without the usury attached to it and the taxation to someone else that's doing a lot of what you're doing. And that starts to become very cyclical. I think it's one of the most underrated ways to not perform in the matrix is to go out and start buying food from people like that. You have to have food, so why not take that little bit of time and buy it from someone if you're not going to buy it, or grow it yourself, even one step better. And I find that that's a big step for a lot of people, and it's a good step for them to, start feeling like they're in control, again, back to them. They're not at the mercy of someone that can cut off the food supply or feed them the poisons that are a lot of times in the foods to begin with. And that taking control of that little bit really starts to put people, I think, in the right mind frame and starts to grow.
Yeah, they go in a much better direction. I mean, as you're saying that, I was just thinking to myself, it'd be good to write down a list of all the current agendas of the New World Order that in some small way I'm supporting in my life. So let's say, for example, I'm surrounded by electronic devices at this very moment. So I'm partly fulfilling the agenda of the New World Order to soft kill people with electromagnetic radiation. How can I solve that one particular problem? Well, I got myself a blue shield. Okay, it protects me on a cellular level. Excellent. Okay, next thing. What else am I doing? Oh, I went to go and get some fast food the other day. I'm supporting the New World Order soft kill bioweapon food agenda. So how can I solve that problem? Well, I'll actually go to a locally run organic cafe and purchase some food there instead. So solve that part of the New World Order agenda. I'm drinking tap water. How can I solve that part? Well, turns out that the organic cafe where I had my my meal also sells big 20-litre bottles of water. So get one of those. And you can run through this just in your daily life, and I can guarantee you'll probably come up with 100 ways in which you're unwittingly supporting the New World Order agenda. If for each of those 100 ways you're supporting the New World Order agenda, there are 1,000 things you can do about it. But you can't suddenly do something about every single one of them all at the same time, straight off the bat. And a lot of people put too much pressure on themselves. They're like, oh, it's too hard to defeat the New World Order in every conceivable way that they're fracking with me right now. So they do nothing. The answer is just do one thing at a time. Until eventually, you're doing so many things that don't support the New World Order agenda, that you recognise to yourself, oh my God, I'm really fracking the New World Order agenda in 100 ways each day. By not participating. By not letting them do this to me. That's really empowering. That's what people need to do. Right? I mean, did you learn English in all of the places where you put commas and exclamation marks and word structures, sentences, things like that? Did you learn all that in a day? Or would it take you practically the most part of your life in order to learn how to do it, and you're still learning things? Of course. So how do you think you're going to defeat the New World Order agenda? All in a day? Or is it going to be something that you constantly work on every day in your life? And because you're constantly working on it, it's constantly encouraging you to keep doing it. Innit?
Yeah, Vin, the one thing that I think is so underrated is that exactly the way you're pointing this out is the whole concept that's been placed upon us is to laugh at the idea of empowering ourselves. That's part of the conditioning that people see it. Because if you talk to people about growing food, most of them will kind of chuckle it off. I was like, yeah, I have a little garden around back, and, keeps the wife busy, blah, blah, blah. They really just blow it off as if it's not important. It's just a hobby, or for that matter, I do it because, I'm kind of a makeshift gardener from time to time, and the little bit that I get doesn't really put a dent in anything. It makes a massive difference. A lot of people just don't know how to grow their own food, period. And I've often had people tell me, well, why can't you just go to the store? I mean, that's what it's there for, right? You go there and you take your money out and you buy something. That's the whole problem right there, is that mindset. Why not just learning on how to do it so that I don't have to ever have that worry, period, about any money or store? There's a lot of things that I can start to do. That's the most important. I always say that's probably the top of the list, top of the food chain, with pun intended, is to learn how to self-sustain your food. And it really isn't that difficult if you put a little bit of time in each day, just trying to figure out a little bit more of it. And people that I've often spoke with said, yeah, there's a learning curve. Of course there's a learning curve. It's just what you just pointed out. It's a learning curve in anything that we do in life. It's to be expected, but, hey, make it fun. Be proud of what you're doing. Have that same pride of you going out and buying some goofy suit that'll be outdated very quickly into your tomato plants or your cucumbers, your zucchini, your cabbage, whatever you're going to grow. Have that same pride. I tell people right now, the one thing that I would tell people to really hone in on, become a beekeeper. Bees are on a massive decline right now. 30% a year, they're saying. They're decolonizing. You know, talk about liquid gold. There's a perfect example in Canada. A lot of people really don't realize how much maple syrup. They actually had a heist last year. It was like something like $36 million of maple syrup was stolen. And, you know, this is the stuff that just kind of floats underneath the radar, and no one takes into consideration how valuable food is to people. So make it valuable to yourself. Don't let it be held over your head like an axe.
Yeah, I agree. Nathan, you are on the air. Welcome to the program.
Hey, been a while since I called in. I had a baby recently, and get my daughter who just got off of chemotherapy. She just started her first day at kindergarten this last Wednesday. I took a little bit of a break from my work with my website and listening to you, Vinny, and other radio shows and calling in. But I really appreciate what you guys are talking about today. And I just wanted to say that for more than a decade now, I've spent pretty much every day of my life thinking about, what it's going to take. And everything that you guys are saying is true. Yes, got to get control of your food source and all that. You have to self-govern, but we have to do it in some kind of way that they're not going to deem the general public as a threat. It's somehow we have to. I've heard a lot of people saying you can't, like concerning primary psychopaths and how they might be making these horrible decisions, to bring in Agenda 21 and everything else. That these guys just need to be, rid from the face of the planet. And
I think that's a good place to leave it there. We've got to rid the planet of psychopaths.
The people around me.
Yeah, Nathan, thank you for your call. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, after the break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show. It's our final segment here with Pete Crackers. If you'd like to call in, the number is 218-339-8525. That's 218-339-8525. 8525. Pete, I wanted to kind of turn it over to you. Now we've discussed a lot of things here, a bit of philosophy and wisdom on life, and what have you. And I was just wondering, is there anything that you kind of you don't normally talk about, because it just doesn't come up in the conversation, or it's not appropriate, or so on and so forth, because we all self-censor to a degree, and I'm just wondering, do you have any beliefs that you try to keep from people for fear that it might freak them out?
The one tough topic is always Zionism, if you want to call it that. It seems to be a touchy, hot button, but when I do bring it up, people tend to get upset or, up in arms about talking about the Jewish religion or Zionism, which is the political agenda of it. But I do like to talk about it because I feel a lot of times that it is very much an important factor on what we're seeing taking place. A lot of people kind of steer from the topic. They don't like to bring it up. But it is what it is, and then in APAC will sum up a lot of the conversation very quickly for most, or Goldman Sachs buying all the political parties all the time. And this is a fact. It's not made up. It does exist. But people just choose not to deal with this conversation. And if they do, they're usually frothing at the mouth, which is an impossible conversation to have. And they won't keep calm-headed enough to maybe really search through it and ask themselves even the tough questions while they're searching through it. But it is a topic that I often like to discuss because I believe that it is such a hidden conversation, in most circles. And you're seeing more people now bringing this up, and for good reason. Why are these things happening? Why are these atrocities taking place? And a lot of times, the roads end up leading back to the same path, unfortunately. And it is what it is. I mean, I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. If once you start doing your homework, you start seeing this reoccurring problem. And why is the question?
Well, why do you think it is?
Well, if you want to get deep into it, there's definitely an agenda, and there's no getting around that agenda. It's been around for a long time, and that's what there's an imposement. They want to impose this slave-type system on humanity, and it's been done very well, unfortunately. And people, once they start going through this, they ask the question, well, who are these people that are doing it? Well, unfortunately, a lot of times the bulk of tends to seep back into a Zionistic way. This political ideology that was, forefronted after the Second World War. And it is what it is. I mean, the banking system is definitely defined on it. A lot of people don't like to talk about kosher tax, and they don't call it a tax, but there is a kosher fee that's put on 90% of products that we use. And people won't look at it. A lot of people just don't even like the topic of that kosher fee, tax, whatever you want to call it, that's forced upon our consumer goods. And I don't need my toothpaste blessed, and I don't want my baking soda blessed, and I don't want to pay for anyone's religion, period. I should have that choice. And they'll often say, well, it's not a cost to you, but it is. It reflects back in the consumer pricing on the product. I don't know if any company's going to come right out and say it, but I can't see them eating it at the same time.
Mm. Well, I find this topic is like a game of two halves, and it's like trying to figure it out. And what did I come back to? Oh yeah, the Holocaust. Okay. And some people say that the Holocaust didn't happen, or if it did happen, it didn't happen the way they said it did, and I've seen a number of these things. And what occurs to me, that whether or not it did or didn't happen, it is the perfect, endless justification for anything, anybody masquerading as a Jewish state could permanently use to discredit and demonize anybody that criticizes them forever. You're killing our babies, you're exterminating them in open-air prison camps. Yeah, but that happened to us, so we can do it to you, that's fine. It's just like, dude, you're sending like virtual frickin' nukes into Syria and into the Gaza Strip, and it's killing children and pregnant women and so on and so forth. They're like, yep, Holocaust though, okay? Shut up.
Exactly.
Dude, you're torturing people in prison. You've got a massive surveillance state network in your country that is the most powerful cyber warfare teams in the entire world, and you're influencing foreign policy and getting people to march to your tune, and you're doing it completely unconstitutionally, unethically, and deliberately, and scumbag aerially. And they're like, yeah, but there was a Holocaust, bro. Didn't you hear?
Yep. And the thing, Vinny, now they're trying to press so hard that you can't even speak about the Jewish religion. And there's no difference if we talk about Catholicism, Christianity, Islamic faith. Bottom line is, we should be allowed to talk. You know, and this is where I see that constant pressure, and this is why you asked, you know, is there something that you talk about or maybe you don't want to talk about because it sets people off? I like to talk about the topic. It just sets people off, unfortunately, the wrong way. Instead of standing back and taking a full analogy of what's going on, it becomes a mind mess of anger and emotion, and that's not solving the problem. The problem is education and understanding the process. And if you can start to educate yourself on the process they've used against all of us and see why we're, you know, being kind of bought into this whole factor, and things like I just said, the kosher tax that are put out there, with most people not even knowing that little U, that little K, that's on products, and that money does get kicked back down the road to Israel. So where is this all wrong to speak about? I don't want to have to pay for anybody's belief system. And
to
I don't
be
want
honest,
to force me. Why is that wrong to say such things? And you're absolutely right. It gets shut up. We had a Holocaust. Stop talking about it. And it's sickening, but that is the hot button topic that I like to usually talk about. And unfortunately, it tends to, you know, bring things upon me, which I believe is where my bots that are smashing down the channel right now have started because of this topic that's been put out many times.
you see, personally,
Talking about it because it's a fair conversation.
Personally, I don't think it actually has anything to do with being Jewish. I don't think it has anything to do with Zionism. I think that the Jews and the Zionists are simply being used by the satanic New World Order to fulfill one of their agendas, and they're just puppets. You know, you got all these wonderful Jewish people in the state of Israel. 8 million turned out for an for a protest against the state of Israel and its treatment of Gaza. That's like almost the majority of the population or something like that. It's just ridiculously massive protests. And yet the government keeps doing it. And it occurs to me that that's the exact same model that I see. You see it in New Zealand. They're passing this state surveillance bill called the GCSB bill. Take away everybody's right to privacy. Country comes out protesting like heck. Country keeps going ahead in the exact same direction. It doesn't change. The United States, they passed really nasty legislation and to destroy everybody's right to privacy and start all these foreign wars. All the people come out, start protesting, lobbying, so on and so forth. Nothing changes. So it doesn't happen just in Israel, just in New Zealand, just in America, but it's happening everywhere, which would lead me to believe that it has nothing to do with New Zealand society or American society or Jewish society or anything. It is the New World Order society in and of itself, using all of us to fight each other. So that we'll be manipulated. And that way, whenever anybody criticizes any part of the New World Order agenda, you can be called racist or anti-American.
Yeah, I'm not anti anything other than anti, evil is what I see on humanity. But, even in that facet, there is still a part of the Jewish religion that says that they're chosen people from God that does make most people kind of uncomfortable with that thought that one group is saying, I'm going somewhere you're not, and I'm entitled to it and you're not. And that's really the underlining statement of the way that I interpret it. And people tend to get really bent when they, see that. Either way, there's a state or a chunk of land that has now kicked out a bunch of people that were living there prior, humans, and literally, forced them into a bad situation by murder, deception, And it is what it is. We can dress this thing up 5 ways to Sunday, but it still is, the fact remains. People were being tortured and killed and thrown out by their hair off their own property that they had lived there for a long time. And no one wants to talk about it.
Well, you're right. And the thing is, religious extremism is something that exists in every religion, even though the vast majority of the members of that religion wouldn't agree with whatever the extremists say. And some Jewish extremists say that, all the rest of the world are slaves and we are God's chosen people. But the vast majority of Jews are like, what? That's freaking crazy. That guy's a religious extremist. And there's people in Islam who say that we must fight a war against the infidels and blow ourselves up in front of them. And the vast majority of Muslims is like, my God, that guy's insane. What is he talking about? I don't believe that. And that's the interesting thing, is that people forget when you're exposing a religious extremist that you're actually trying to demonize the entire religion. And they misunderstand. They don't quite get it. Pete Crackers, thank you very much for your time today. And we'll see you again sometime, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening.
No matter where you live, globalism affects you. Did you know that the Vinny Eastwood Show has more subscribers than New Zealand Herald TV and is New Zealand's most popular YouTube news channel, where warm-hearted humour and a list of awesome guests talk about crucial issues which the mainstream media ignore? A show where you, the listener, can phone up with questions, comments and suggestions of guests. Vinny is building a hub to connect truthers with raw information they need to become active. He can help you gain further skills such as website building, producing audio and video, and creating revenue streams in your own multimedia environment. Because Vinny supports such a wide range of people in the truth movement, he is not government or corporate backed and relies entirely on your donations. Give now, give generously, or subscribe for $10 a month for access to ad-free video archives. Just visit thevinnyeastwoodshow.com and click donate.